Google Analytics Beginner's Guide, Chapter 4. Understanding how Google Analytics works. In order to use the collected data to make informed decisions in Google Analytics, you will probably want to understand how Google Analytics functions. In this chapter, we will be covering the 4 components of how it works and become more familiar with some of the terms and concepts that will be essential for understanding the Google Analytics paradigm for business. The 4 components to Google Analytics: collection, processing, configuration, and reporting. Collection. The data collection process requires the installation of tracking code on your website, app, or digital device. The tracking code installs a cookie on the visitor's browser which identifies them with a unique visitor ID. Although Google Analytics can collect information from any digital device, such as anything from a fridge to a kiosk, we will start with website analytic tracking. Website data collection. Google Analytics uses JavaScript code to collect information. This code should be placed on every web page that you want to track. For best practices, track every page. Once the code is installed and Google Analytics is verified to your website, the code can send data tracking to the analytics servers and back to the user interface. This code can send 3 types of information when a user lands on the website: information pertaining to the actual website visits, like sessions and users; information pertaining to the visitor's browser, like device or operating system; and information from the source that made the referral, the website the visitor came from. The program will combine the data collected into what's known as a hit. When someone shows measurable action on your website, the new information will then be logged and sent to the Google Analytics servers for processing. A hit is documented and updated every time a user navigates to a new web page. Mobile data collection. When using Google Analytics for mobile applications, you will need to set up SDK tracking code for actions or activity that you want the user to complete on your app. When a user takes an action, Analytics sends a hit to the GA servers. The tracking will vary based on the device and their unique operating systems. Although applications are not always connected to the web, the information may be stored on the device until the internet connection is achieved. Then the stored hits can be sent to Google Analytics servers for processing. Digital device data collection. Digital device data collection. Setting up Google Analytics for a digital device may require professional developmental help. The system of collection works much like a mobile app. When an action is taken, it will send a hit to the GA servers for processing. Setting up actions, however, may prove difficult without a well-versed web developer. Processing. This component is where the raw data is transformed into usable data and separated into categories within the Google Analytics platform. Configuration. This component also transforms raw data. However, it transforms the data based on the configuration settings that you have set. This could be a goal, filter, or any custom settings that have been implemented in order to give you the best reporting for your online business objectives. Reporting. You have a terrific selection of default reporting views to help you segment your data. You can also build your own dashboards or import them from the gallery. Typically, you will visit www.google.com/analytics in order to access your GA accounts. However, developers can use the Google Analytics Core API in order to access the reports and automate complex or redundant tasks. Dimensions and metrics. We discussed in an earlier chapter about qualitative and quantitative data. When using the GA paradigm, we will call the qualitative data or descriptive data dimensions, and we will call the quantitative data or data represented numerically metrics. When you're in a reporting view, you will see that the reports will often show dimensions on the left, and these are segmented by metrics along the top. For example, when you look at the locations report in Geo in the audience report, you will see a list of countries which are dimensions on the left. Then you will see columns segmenting the countries by metrics such as sessions, new users, bounce rate, and so on. Dimensions help describe the characteristics of a visitor or session, whereas metrics give you the numerical insight into the audience's behavior. You can also set up custom metrics like goal conversions. Visitors. A visitor is a unique internet surfer or user accessing your website within a specified time frame. You can use this as a way to gauge your overall audience. Visits. A visit or session is the consecutive time one visitor or user spends on a website or application. By default, Google Analytics will time out a session after a half hour. If you have content that your users are expected to interact with, you may want to extend your session timeout setting. You can change the session timeout in your settings in the admin view, in the property settings, in the JS tracking info, in the session settings. You can also change the campaign timeout settings here. Page views. Every time a web page is loaded on your website within a session, it is considered a page view. Loading a new page on your website will constitute a page view and extend the user session. If a visitor session has timed out, it will count as one page view in a new session. Events. An event is a custom metric that you can implement and track whenever a visitor takes an action that you want them to take on your website. Triggering an event will also extend a user's session. By tracking events, you can see what steps your website visitors are taking and if those steps are in line with your online strategies. Google Analytics time calculation. The time on site, or session, is calculated by the time from the first interaction to the last interaction. This could be page load or event. The time on page is calculated by page views and events. When a web page is loaded, it begins the page view, and from then until the time of the next web page load or event is calculated on a page. Bounce. A bounce is when a user lands on your website and doesn't view any other web page or trigger an event. This is what the analytics community considers as someone who came to your site and left. The visit duration will be 0 for a bounce because there are no other trackable actions to measure the time on page against. Need online marketing? We can help. Contact Market Media for consultation now.